Morning. It's good to see you today. It's another day to be alive. I celebrated yesterday 22,280 days on this planet. That also works out to 61 years. But, I just thought, 22,280 revolutions. No wonder why I'm a little dizzy. It's crazy. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's so amazing how quickly time goes by. And what a joy it is when you can just see the Lord at work. And it really does go by so fast when you realize, man, God is just doing things. And it's like if you're not hanging on, it's going to pass you by so fast. And so just hang on to what the Lord is doing. It's really, really great. And we've got a lot of exciting things going on as we go into the summer. We're heading into July, which is really one of our busiest months of the year. And so please just stay in prayer. Ask the Lord how, we can all serve together, serve the Lord as a family together. And we'll just watch what God does, because I really believe a ton of people are going to get saved. Hearts are going to be changed. Lives are going to be transformed. And that is a worthwhile investment time. And so if you have your Bibles, I'm going to invite you to open them to the Gospel of Luke chapter 7. 7th chapter of the Gospel of Luke as we continue on. It's going quickly. I just realize we're just kind of staying nice and steady and consistent, and the Lord is meeting us and showing us great, great things. There were a couple guys that were hunting, and they would go hunting with one another. One was a really positive, upbeat guy, and the other guy was negative all the time. The positive guy discovered something he didn't think the negative guy could possibly complain about. He discovered a dog that could walk on water. They were having a great day. They got one duck, and it fell in the water, and the dog walked right out into the water and picked up the duck and brought it back. And the positive guy was just smiling, and the negative guy was frowning. Well, they got a second duck, and the dog walked out onto the water, picked up the duck, and the positive guy was grinning ear to ear. The negative guy was cold and sour. They even got a third duck, and the dog once again walked out onto the water to retrieve this duck. And after this, the positive guy looked over at the negative guy, and he said, Did you notice anything about my dog? And the negative guy said, I noticed one thing, your dog can't swim. Some people, you just can't win. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, there's always going to be something wrong. There's always something that could have been done better. It just seems to be that way. Even among what we could consider would be the greatest of them all, the most admired of them all, and yet the greatest and the most admired can find themselves being mocked and ridiculed by others. And we're going to see that today. Now, where we're at as we go through the Gospel of Luke, we're in this most interesting place. Is the ministry of Jesus is really just kind of really getting into gear at this point. He has kind of declared his purpose for being there. He's got his group of disciples around him, and they're going from place to place. He's been teaching, he's been ministering, but as his popularity has grown, the conflict, the enmity, the difficulties continue to grow as well towards him and the ministry, and even the things that were just right. And we will see tonight that John the Baptist has been arrested, and he's in prison, and it's kind of a difficult thing to look at. It's hard for us to see John in that position for doing the right thing. And Jesus himself is falling under a lot of criticism at this point because he's not playing by the rules. He's not playing by the rules that the religious leaders have established. He's not doing the things that they want him to do. He's doing the things that are right, and it's causing, again, some conflict and some animosity. But today, we're going to see Jesus kind of fire back, if you will. against his critics. He's gonna level his own criticisms against the people that are criticizing him. And he gives this passage that is such a simple, it's almost a parable. But in this little story that he tells, he's really going to draw the difference between what false religion and true religion are. The difference between transformation and I guess what we could call a false profession. Somebody that's just playing the part, somebody that's acting. Now, as we get into the section of scriptures today and in that season, if we were in Jesus' day, I want to suggest to you there would really be two powerful voices that people would be listening to. The first would be Jesus himself, of course. And I mean, everybody, when they would listen to him teach, they would gather from everywhere. They would listen to him teach and say, he speaks with authority, not like the scribes and Pharisees. This is just something so different about the way this Jesus spoke. And so they would gather and they would listen to him. But the other voice that would be very powerful would be the voice of John the Baptist. And when you consider these two, these were the heavy hitters of the day. And yet there was a large group of people, well, yeah, there was a large group of people. There was a group of people that wouldn't listen to either one of them. They wouldn't listen to Jesus, and they wouldn't listen to John. And so we're going to kind of take a look at that whole scenario. We're going to look at that scene and try and pick it apart and gain some, I believe, valuable lessons from it. So starting in verse 31, we're going to take a look at what I'm going to call an unsatisfied generation. Verse 31, and the Lord said, to what then shall I liken the men of this generation? What are they like? They're like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to one another saying, we played the flute for you, but you didn't dance. And we mourned to you, and you didn't weep. And so in this generation, we're talking about this group of people that just seem to be hostile towards the things of God, hostile towards Jesus and his ministry. People that were hearing truth but not really responding in a really great way. And he says, you know what this generation is like? They're like a bunch of kids. They're like children. Now, children in the Bible are portrayed in two ways. One is glorious, one is not so glorious. And it's really true about kids. Kids have many amazing, wonderful attributes. In fact, Jesus said, if you want to enter the kingdom, you got to be like a child. And so what are the characteristics that kind of are acknowledged and held up by Jesus as, you know, this is a good thing? Well, children are great at one thing, their innocence. You know, they have just this simplicity, this innocence about them. They have a faith and a trust and a simplicity that is beautiful. And it's really neat to see when a kid just looks and says, yeah, I believe that, I trust that. It's amazing. And Jesus says, that is a great thing. That childlike character is a good thing. But anybody that's been around kids any amount of time knows that children also have the other side. We won't call it the childlike side, we'll call it the childish side. And the childish side is immature. And there's a difference between being childish in a good way and being childlike in a bad way. And when Jesus describes this generation, he says they're childlike in a bad way. They're childish in the bad way because kids so often don't know what to take seriously. They don't know what is a real important thing and what is not a real important thing. What is something that is credible and what something that is just incredible. It's non-credible. And they have a real hard time knowing the difference because they're kids. No experience. They don't know any better. And one of the things that's certain about a childish behavior is not understanding the importance of caring for the soul. of caring for the soul of mankind, caring for their own soul to make sure they can say, it is well with my soul. And it's the childish person that says, oh, whatever, I don't care about my soul. I care about physical things, not my soul. And that's not a great mentality to carry. So he says this generation is like children. And they're like children in the marketplace. And as they gather together, he describes something that you could probably see and can see any day. Go to a playground, go to a park, go to a place where kids are gathering and they're together. And it's like kids in the marketplace, calling to one another saying, we played the flute for you and you didn't dance. We mourned for you and you didn't weep. Game. And in the wedding game, we're all going to have a wedding. And a wedding is a celebration. And so we're going to play happy music. And we're going to dance and act like, you know what, this is just the greatest thing. We're going to have fun. And so they play the wedding game. And nobody wants to play. And so, okay, well, we don't want to play the wedding game. Well, then let's play the funeral game. Doesn't sound like a fun game, but I guess people have fun in different ways. And so the funeral game is other. And so they say, let's play the funeral game. And they go, we don't want to play that either. You don't want to play the wedding game. You don't want to play the funeral game. It's like no matter what we do, you don't want to have any happiness. You don't want to be satisfied with anything. This is the roots of course, that 1965 song, Mick Jagger. I Can't Get No. Can you believe that song was out in 1965, June of 65? That means that song is going to be satisfied. And now what Jesus will do is take that attitude and say, and this is how it's working out today. This is how it works out in their spiritual lives. So verse 33, as we see again, the two masters, John the Baptist and Jesus. He says, verse 33, for John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say he has a demon. So John the Baptist, of course, we've seen, we know his, and he would preach righteousness and vow. Likely he took this vow that the other person that was famous for taking it, of course, was Samson. But I think he's a better example of this vow than Samson was. This vow in Numbers chapter 6, it kind of held what the Nazirite vow was, because it was a vow of great dedication to God. And you would do certain things. Number one, you wouldn't cut your hair. And so when your hair got really long, people would know, oh, that dude must have taken the Nazirite vow. Not only did you allow your hair to grow, but you didn't touch anything that came from the vine. You didn't drink wine. You didn't do anything like that. It just showed that you were separated. You were committing yourself to other things. And the third thing is you wouldn't have any contact with the dead. You wouldn't touch the dead. You wouldn't get in contact with it. It was just a way of saying, my life is completely dedicated to God. I'm not touching wine. I'm not touching things from the vine. I'm avoiding things that reek of death. And I'm allowing my hair to grow, which is an outward sign of what I'm. So John the Baptist likely had taken that vow. He would be out in the wilderness calling out sin, standing for righteousness, calling out things that were wrong. He lived a life of great simplicity. His diet was locusts and wild honey. So, you can't say he was living great. He baptized people in the Jordan River, and he pointed people to Jesus Christ. Those are the things that we know about John's ministry, and it was a great ministry. But in light of that great ministry that John conducted, what was the accusation against him? He has a demon. I can't think of anything more illogical than that. He has a demon. So John is accused of having a demon, and of course we know Jesus was accused at least 4 times in the Gospel of John. 4 times Jesus is accused of having a demon as well. John 7:20, John 8:48, John 8:52, and John 10:20. 4 times, Jesus is accused of having a demon. John is accused of having a demon. I guess what we could learn from that is you could be accused of doing the exact opposite of what you intend to do. Here's John the Baptist and Jesus trying to get people to heaven and restore their lives and get them blessed of God. And the accusation against them is, oh, you must have a demon. Just understand that about this life, is that as good as your intentions and plans are, there will be people that see things exactly opposite of where you really of what you desire for them and where you would like to see them go. Just the way it is. So John the Baptist, he came living very frugally, very simply, standing, kind of living isolated out in the wilderness. He's got a demon. Verse 34, here's the other side. But the Son of Man has come eating and drinking. And you say, look, a glutton and a winebibber, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And so Jesus came the other side of the ministry. John, isolated, quiet, solemn, calling people to repentance. Jesus on the other comes and says, hey man, let's live life together. Let's spend some time together. Let's hang out with one another. Let's celebrate life. And if you look at the life of Jesus, verse 36. Verse 36, a Pharisee, one of the religious leaders, says, hey, I want to have you over for dinner. And Jesus says, okay, I'll eat dinner with you. And of course, previous chapter, Matthew, the tax collector, throws a party for Jesus and invites all his tax collector friends. And he says, Jesus, you want to come over? We're going to have a celebration. He says, I'll come. I mean, Jesus was just down with anything. The people that didn't like him, he would eat with them. The people that couldn't help him at all, he would eat with them. It was like that was just who he was. He just lived life that way. And so, in living that life of